It's all very different. So we're going to just keep moving along and trying to understand this as best we can. With the help of some of my friends. Jeff Green is the Detroit bureau chief from Bloomberg News. And we thought we'd get an expert here on the program to help put all this stuff into perspective. And Jeff joins us now. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, such as there are experts on this process.
Yeah, go figure. It's really, you have to dig deep on this because it's taking twists and turns. Jeff, what I was talking about in the last hour was, and I knew this was going to come because, I've been out there saying I was on Fox News and, bankruptcy is messy. It is not the surgical clean rinse thing. Not so much.
Right.
Once you get into a bankruptcy court. And essentially, let's start with Chrysler. Tell us do you know anything more about Arthur Gonzalez? Like, what does he like to drink? Can we send him some fine wines? Is he a good guy? He was appointed by Clinton. What's his deal?
Unfortunately, I don't know the history of Mr. Gonzalez other than he's very experienced in this area, and that's one of the reasons everybody wants to be before him, and that's one of the reasons they chose that court. This is not a court that's any stranger to bankruptcy, and it's most likely, 90% likely or more that this will be where the GM bankruptcy is, assuming it's necessary.
Yeah, he handled the Enron case, and that, and I would say that as big as that was, this is more complicated in this meltdown environment because you have. What I was just saying here, Jeff, is here's the problem. You have Rush Limbaugh and all these folks, this lawyer, Thomas Lorius. Are you following this? The lawyer for Perella Weinberg?
Right.
So he's saying that the administration tried to threaten them with folks like you, that he would I don't know if you're a White House correspondent or who your Bloomberg White House, who is your White House correspondent over at Bloomberg News?
We have a whole office there with hundreds of them, so they could pick and choose which one they wanted to blame for that.
Yeah, so they would all be sicked on Perella Weinberg, according to this lawyer who no longer works for them. But his case is that, look at these, there were 46, let's start with this, 46 creditors at Chrysler, and they had secured loans. They had first lien, okay? They bought these were discounted bonds, right? Junk bonds. Do you have any idea who else?
They weren't really junk bonds. They were the debt in Chrysler that had already been secured by the banks and quickly became similar to junk, but they didn't start out. It wasn't the same as an unsecured junk bond. These were bank loans which were secured, and that is the difference here. We're talking about people who did have an expectation of collateral. These weren't wholly speculative, so there is some.
Well, they were secured, but they were discounted.
Correct. I mean,
reports
60 cents
are
on the dollar was the most they ever sold these for.
60 cents on the dollar?
Yeah, that was the best they ever did was 60 cents on the dollar.
The best, and some of them I understand were bought at 30 cents on the dollar to begin with,
which is what the government more or less offered. So yeah, I mean there definitely were a lot of people in the group, the dissident group, that were buying for something that was at least near what the government was offering.
Right. So they would be made whole essentially.
Some of them. It's not
depending on where they came in.
Ironically, the people that agreed most with this were the people who were taking the biggest haircut, which were the original secured lenders, the big banks.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they've got stress tests coming on Thursday that are stressful. All right, so what happened was you had this small group of secured lenders who bought these discounted bonds, but they do, as you said, have a secured, they had a lien on them, and they essentially would not, they wanted to be restored. The problem here, Jeff, is that, as I was just saying, going into break, normally in bankruptcy courts, you have debtor in possession financing, this third party. You don't. You have the government coming in to save them. So this is not a usual case where the laws, I mean, this judge is going to have a hard time because the interest, the UAW, let's talk about that part, because a lot of people, they're just saying, well, the UAW is now going to run Chrysler. What they are doing is taking what was promised to them contractually to pay out their health care benefits, 50% of that, and they're just taking it in equity instead of a contractual agreement for those payments.
Right, and they're having to cut the benefits to those retirees that they had earlier agreed to. Even with that, based on that, they're taking away dental and they're taking away optical, and also the bigger headline things like Viagra and Nexium and Prilosec, and those sorts of benefits are going away even with this agreement because they can't afford the level of benefits they had before.
Okay, so when someone's taking your Viagra away, come on, that's pain. That is pain and hardship.
Well, taking away your dental and vision is probably a hardship.
I know. I'm a talk radio host, so I have to entertain as well. All right. So listen. So that's the deal there. That they took a huge cut, not only in the benefits that they would be offered, but also, this was a contractual promise they renegotiated that. So that this is equity. Okay. So now it's going to go into the hands of a bankruptcy judge who has to decide what prevails. A first lien by a group of, a few investors. Do we even know how many these holdouts are and who are they? Because Perella Weinberg has now jumped on the board with the administration. So
the ratio runs, it represents about 30%, a little more of the individual lenders, but only about 10% of the value of the loan. So we're talking 90% of the value of their secured debt is on board with the plan that Chrysler presented to the judge, which, unless the judge decides that the so-called TARP lenders don't have standing, they have an overwhelming amount of the debt in their control at this point and under agreement when they came into bankruptcy. That's why they were confident they could come in, force this on the few remaining holdouts, and move on.
And those holdouts were confident that they could use the principal that they had, the secured loan, to what do they want? Are because their option is this. The company is worth nothing if the government doesn't give them debtor in possession financing. The company is worth nothing. It's liquidated, and then they're standing in line to auction off a plant in Detroit. Honestly, do they think they're upside down, the company, their balance sheet, so they're going to have a fire sale right now? I live in Detroit. Jeff, are you a Detroit person?
Yes.
Okay. What's it worth? It's not. It seems like a stupid move.
These are the riskiest of the risk takers, the cowboys of the debt world. They go in sometimes assuming maybe they will lose their principal, but they're going in for the biggest possible return, and par is not the kind of thing their investors are looking for when they give them their money. I'm not characterizing all of them because I obviously don't know the identity of them, but the kinds of investors that are going to fight this are basically looking at it as getting par is not the kind of thing they signed on for, and they're willing to risk losing their principal to take this into the court on the chance they might be able to get more.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do we know? I know we know Perella Weinberg came forward. Now they're on board. We know Oppenheimer Funds was one of that was reported in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, one of this group, right? This non-TARP group.
Right. There's been some companies that have been named, and they today specifically asked that the judge not name any more of them because there's been death threats, and some of these guys are afraid for their safety, so they've asked for anonymity.
But that's crap. That is crap. You know what? I'm sorry, Jeff. You can't be anonymous and have a gag order. You're taking an industry down. You're taking 1 in 10 jobs in this country down so that you go par on a junk bond, and now you want a gag order on the name of your company. That is out of proportion to the reality of any actual concerns over their threat and safety. That's me. That's me.
I think because of what you described, that's exactly why they're getting the kind of feedback they're getting, is because the idea that this is seen by tens of thousands of people as the end of their industry, and these guys are already part of what's seen as what brought the economy down. I mean, there's not a lot of love for Wall Street right now.
Yeah, well, they don't deserve a gag order in the process. If they're going to go into Chapter 11, then that's the courts. The courts. Everyone else has to have their documents revealed. I'd worry more about the swine flu. All right, so let's when we come back, Jeff Green is the Detroit bureau chief with Bloomberg News. We're going to talk about Chrysler because a lot of what's happening here has an effect down the clock is ticking, and a lot of this shapes sort of what it will. GM's future is like. I talked to Fritz Henderson last night, Jeff, in Detroit. That was pretty interesting. He's a very dynamic person. I feel really good about Fritz. Anyways, so
he's an interesting guy. That's for sure.
Yeah. So we'll talk about GM and the difference between the two, because these cases are different. As we continue, let's just say that 1-888-64 Nancy. That's the number 646-2629. The number to the program if you have questions on any of this. It's complicated. It's going to blow up. It's going to be political, constitutional issues versus really the welfare of our country, the manufacturing base of our country. As I said, it would be. Alrighty, that's coming up. GM next on the Nancy Skinner Show.
There was a distance between you and I, a misunderstanding.
right, let's move along here. Not a lot of time. Some developments as we continue on the Nancy Skinner Show. 1-888-64-NANCY. So my guest is Jeff Green. He's the Detroit bureau chief with Bloomberg News. Jeff, I'm just seeing that the bankruptcy judge, Arthur Gonzalez, has postponed his decision on whether Chrysler can start the process of transferring its assets to this new entity, Fiat, because of opposition from these, what should we call these, non-TARP hedge funds who have drugged this thing into it. And guess what, folks? Guess who's the lawyer speaking publicly on this case, who's representing them in bankruptcy court? It's Tom Loria, the guy we've been covering. He, it says, and this is being reported online, Jeff, that he is imposing, he doesn't want the sale to go through. He doesn't want any assumption of value that this company's going to have value. They're going for liquidation. And so he doesn't want the sale to go through because they want to liquidate the assets. Basically, we're opposing at this point everything that the debtor is doing that is premised on the assumption that value would be preserved through the sale. Because if we didn't have the sale, none of these actions make sense, said Loria, who is representing Oppenheimer Funds and Stairway Capital Management is the name. It also says, as you were right, Jeff, people in this group have they've asked to remain anonymous for now, citing fears for their safety, says Loria, who was all but happy to go on Frank Beckman's show and have it be amplified on Rush Limbaugh's show about how the UAW had done nothing, and taken no haircuts whatsoever, and that the Obama people were threatening them, and now they want anonymity.
Yeah, there's been no shortage of hyperbole around this story, that's for sure.
All right.
And I mean, it is fair to point out that the UAW has taken quite a few cuts prior to this Vebis situation coming into this. That was just one piece of billions of dollars in cuts that have been made.
Well, Larry is in Los Angeles. He's a caller, and because his question has to do with what you just said. Let's get Larry in here. I think he wants to know. Hi, Larry. First of all.
Hi.
So you're on with Jeff. Your question is, why do you expect the hedge funds and bankers to take a haircut but not the UAW? Is that what you're saying?
Right. I mean, why not just offer the UAW 30 cents on the dollar that you're going to give the hedge funds and the banks?
Okay. So, Jeff, this is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The UAW has taken, probably it would be more than that if you had to say that what was owed them contractually for their Viva fund and for prior concessions, and now and the discounts like you mentioned in their health care, they probably got a way more raw deal than the hedge funds.
If you take the obligation, the actual obligation is about $50-some billion, and they're going to get about $10 billion. So, yeah, if you look at it that way, they're definitely getting more than a 30-cent haircut. The problem is they already agreed to a haircut coming into this, which is sort of discounted away. So even before this bankruptcy procedure at Chrysler and the expected bankruptcy procedure at General Motors, they took a haircut that took them down to about 60% of their claim, and now they're being asked to cut that claim in half again. So when you start to do the math, they've already been asked to take a haircut, and they're taking a deeper haircut. Not to say that there aren't benefits that these guys get that most Americans don't get. It's just this is sort of the deal they had been dealt, and these retirees had been expecting as sort of their contract with the company, and it is going to be significantly cut.
Yeah. So did you get that, Larry? They go from $50 billion to $10 billion. So in essence, they are taking a way bigger haircut than these hedge fund owners are, because most of them bought anywhere from 30 to 60 cents on the dollar, and they were being asked to take, I think I heard 33 cents. So, they would be essentially made whole or take a little bit of a haircut.
The people who are objecting are the people who are taking the least amount of a hit on this. The people who are going along with it are the ones taking the biggest hit, ironically.
Ironic, and want to be anonymous. Not in my world. Sorry. This is court. You took us into bankruptcy court, my friends, Oppenheimer and Stairway Capital Management and Tom Loria. Nobody's wishes ill will upon their personage, but we certainly want you to stand up. If you feel so good about what you are doing and that you're so right, then you shouldn't be out there hiding in this. You should be proud, wearing a flag as you take. Can you tell I'm a little upset, Jeff, right now?
It's leaking through.
We didn't get to GM, so you'll have to come back, will you, and join us on another day here coming up real soon?
Sure.
Tell us about how this affects GM.
I will.
Okay, Jeff Green is the Detroit bureau chief of Bloomberg News, and thank goodness he was here, because Larry, did you see that? Way bigger haircut. We'll keep going on the Nancy Skinner Show.
Pressure.